of your screen or somewhere.
There we go. All right. Today is Tuesday, February 4th, 2025. We are going to meditate for about 20 minutes and then see what comes up for conversation. I will mention that these recordings are being put into a podcast format, so they're easy to listen to if you're interested. Available on the major, podcast platforms: Spotify, Apple, Pandora, one other one, I think. So if you or someone you know is interested in just listening, that's available. Of course, it always involves 20 minutes of meditation, which can be sort of an odd thing to listen to on a podcast, but I suppose it works. You can always scroll ahead, jump to the content. But in any case, let us begin today with some sitting, just settling back into a comfortable posture. You can close your eyes or just lower your gaze, turning the attention inward. And starting with just awareness of any physical sensations, feeling how you're holding your body, the alignment of your body, and noticing how alert you are or not so alert, the physical aspect of wakefulness. And then taking some time to just gently move the attention through the body. I like to go from head to toe, but you can also go from toe to head and just checking the different areas of sensation. We're not checking them in a medical way, but just as an awareness exercise, grounding the attention, grounding the attention in the reality of the present moment, of the felt experience of your body in this moment. And in that process of tuning into sensations, bringing a kind of letting go quality, relaxing or releasing to any tension or tightness in the body, so that even as you become more aware of the sensations, you're quite naturally settling a bit. And then bringing awareness to the movement and sensations of breath, breathing in, breathing out. This is our simple beginning to meditation, establishing posture, awareness of body, the breath. What arises then when you direct the attention in these ways? It's very common for the mind to wander. So essential to our practice is coming back when we realize the mind is drifting. Rather than thoughts, we might feel ourselves carried away by feelings, some emotion or a sensation, some energy in the body. Whether we're able to stay with the breath or get lost in thoughts or impacted by feelings. We try to apply mindfulness to every aspect of their experience. What is happening? How are we reacting to what's happening? Is there grasping or aversion? How are we interpreting our experience? How are we labeling it? Are we judging it? Is there a story around it? Well, as much as we can, try to keep things simple, coming back to the breath. At times, it can be like sitting on a little island in the middle of a raging river, thoughts and feelings sweeping by, and just sitting and observing Can be helpful at times, and to bring an intentional attitude or wish for kindness, kindness toward ourselves, towards whatever is arising, kindness for the world, for all beings. We remember that whatever is arising for us is not personal. That any beings have thoughts and feelings. All humans have thoughts and feelings that are disturbing at times, difficult to hold. So we don't take it personally. Try to appreciate that we have these tools of mindfulness and compassion to hold us. This is our refuge, our protection. Okay. Uh, Practicing mindfulness and trying to bring awareness to your self, to your mind, to your feelings, to your body. It, the tricky thing about it is that there's no control group. You know, you are the entire experiment, and um, you know, the observer uh, is also the interpreter, and so it's everything we understand to be happening is filtered through our own bias. And, I'm thinking about this because in the last couple of days, I wrote a couple of things. One was sort of like, oh, this could be something for tricycle, a commentary on where Buddhism is right now. And then I wrote an email to someone that I was considering sending it to a group, and I sent it to an individual to ask their feedback first. And what I realized about both of them was basically I was being a crank, you know. And I was like, oh, like I'm cranky right now, you know. Uh, and so of course I, you know, have employed restraint of pen, and I have not attempted to publish or spread widely my crankiness. But it's just very telling, and it speaks to me about powerlessness and how, you know, I mean, I've been doing this practice and sober for a long time, and it's like, you when things are going well, there's a tendency to think, well, I am doing a good job. I have done a lot of good work, and it's paying off because I have, I am a good person. I've created good karma, whatever. And it's like, yeah, maybe, but it doesn't take much, get sick for a couple of weeks, get some lousy weather, it's February, and the next thing you know, you're like, what's the point of any of this? I'm old. Maybe it's time for me to go. Maybe I should quit this Dharma business, get a bigger TV screen and just, lazy boy. Time to retire. So, yeah, I'm feeling very powerless over my feelings. I mean, I guess I mention this from time to time, but morning, I think morning was always difficult for me. That's one of the reasons I became a musician. I was like, I like to stay up late and sleep late, Um, but but these days, like I wake up and it's like it's just bad, and it's like it takes a couple hours before I'm like I feel, and then I'm like, what was my problem? Why, and again, it's just so hard to analyze ourselves, right? To figure out my own why is this happening? What do I need to do? So there's really a sense of, for me, primarily, the basics of my recovery, which are suit up and show up, just keep doing the things that, you need to do. Keep moving, basically. Keep moving my body, stay active, stay engaged. And when it feels shitty, just keep going, just because my what my brain wants me to do is just like give up. And it's like, where does that lead, right? Like there's no escape. There just isn't. You know. This is your optimistic message for this morning. But that's a Dharma book, right? The Wisdom of No Escape. I'm not sure if that's one of those. I don't know who it is. Could be Pema, or it could be Alan
Want to unmute?
Watts.
You want to unmute?
So yeah, I'm uh, in states like this, and it's like, okay, now I'm going to give a Dharma talk, and you guys again know me enough that I just don't have them canned. I I could I could can them. They're pretty easy to can. I mean, I can give you that Dharma talk. I think, but it doesn't feel real to me. And I feel like um, recovery, first of all, to me, demands that we carry on through the moments of difficulty. That there is no recovery if we can't deal with the difficult moments, the difficult emotional moments, the difficult life situations. You know, uh, that is to me like the first kind of characteristic that separates someone who is an addict from someone who's not an addict or not an active addict, which is an addict when things go bad turns to the escape, the alcohol, whatever, the food, and the person in recovery says no. No, I'm going to keep going. I'll be okay. That's one of the little exercises in my workbook for step two, just called "I'll be okay," and I've found myself saying that to myself the last couple of days. I'll be okay. you know. And as I say, it's not like I feel bad all the time. I don't feel bad right now. I feel it's nice to be able to be with you guys and to talk. I had some really joyful moments yesterday. I went for a long hike with my daughter, and we watched some of the SNL 50 years of music, which was hysterical. It was wonderful, delightful, and a really delicious meal. And this is, you know, I've talked about this, how, when uh, in the past, the way I thought of depression was that I was always depressed, or that when I was depressed, it was like this pervasive thing. And one of the things that the Dharma brings that is that reminder of impermanence, and not just like over the long haul impermanence, but the moment by moment impermanence. That feeling crappy can flip in a moment. You know, I can step outside, and maybe not today, but and and breathe and look at the trees, and just the mind, the fog lifts. And so for me, that's the one of the key partners of suit up and show up is everything is impermanent, and I'll be okay. You know, um, I mean, I've wondered sometimes whether I say this, it's not about me, but I don't want to point at anybody else, whether I am like, you know, uh, particularly like oversensitive, you know. And I mean, we hear this about addicts too, right? Like, like other people are like take ups and downs, and maybe I don't know, but maybe people who aren't addicts, take the ups and downs in life and don't take them as seriously. You know, it's like my brother who had his knee replacement. He was like, "Oh yeah, the next day I was just up and around and everything was normal." I was like, "Really? Like that doesn't sound right to me." But he goes through prostate cancer and doesn't mention it to me because it's no big thing, that, and there seem to be people like that who just like, oh yeah, fine, life. Whereas for me, it's like, it's raining today. I can't take it. You know, how am I going to survive another day of rain? This is not possible. So, am I just a neurotic, who needs a lot of treatment, a lot of dharma, a lot of recovery, a lot of meanings? So I'm glad to see people are laughing. I assume that that means that you sometimes have had moments like that in your life. Like, oh no, I have a flat tire. What am I going to, what's the point of living? Uh, yeah, so I mean, and of course, humor is supposed to be, all the comedians turn out to be suicidal. So now we know why they're so funny. Yeah. So yeah. So I really, I'll tell you, when I was in my in the 70s, when astrology was my guide, I had decided that the winter months leading up to my birthday in March were, astrologically bad for my brain. And now, of course, I have like seasonal affective disorder or whatever, but would that all be solved if I just went to the southern hemisphere during the winter? I don't think so. I just have a feeling that there's still would be moods, still be bad days. And so, the trying to fix it, trying to solve it, trying to judge it. No, none of that works to me, So that's to me the powerlessness. It's going to come. The difficulties are going to come. But powerlessness is not the end of the 12-step process. It's only the beginning. It's the acknowledgement that there are limits to my control over my experience. And so that then I realize, because if I think I'm in control, then I'm a complete failure, right? Like, well, if I'm in control and this is the life I've gotten, then, I've really failed. And when I realized, like, no, I'm not in control. This is the way it is. Life has ups and downs. In the Buddhism talks about the eight worldly winds. There's the 1,000 joys and 1,000 sorrows, the vicissitudes of life. And so that I need that reminder. I need to see, like, I'm not in control and I have agency. And that's a classic paradox, a spiritual paradox, right? That agency is, again, suit up and show up, keep going, but don't think that what I do is going to fix everything and make everything exactly the way I want it to be. Recognize that I have a role, an agency, and I'm not in control of the results of karma, of thoughts, words, and actions. They will unfold. However, the principle of sila, of wholesome behavior, is that if I keep on this wholesome track of behavior and efforts at mental, wholesome mental states, that I'll be okay. You came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. That if I stay in harmony with the law of karma, that I'll be okay. Because I know, sorry, I know that if I don't do that, if then one of my complaints, let me cough a little with the mute one moment. If I don't act in wholesome ways, if I react in negative ways, if I write cranky letters and emails and things, and publish cranky things, negative things are going to come back to me. If I drink or use, if I act out of rage, if I just stay in bed all day, all the unwholesome things I could do, then I'm not going to be okay. I'm going to continue to be not experiencing unpleasant states. Uh, and so that's kind of why I'm here today. It's like I showed up, but also, what's kept me going in recovery and in Dharma practice. Um, and yeah, I can't get on board with the everything's great and just think positive thoughts and just spread love. And, I have, for me, part of my healing is the rigorous honesty of sometimes it really is painful and difficult. And that's okay. You know, I've, at times I encounter what seems to me to be this, and I've talked about this in my book, Living Kindness, this kind of smiley face Dharma, as if, well, if you're really mindful and practicing loving kindness, you're always going to be happy. You're always going to feel good. Like, well, okay. I hope that's true for you. It's not true for me. It doesn't work for me. The thing that uh, when I walked into Alcoholics Anonymous in 1985, the thing that moved me was hearing other people's suffering. It wasn't hearing, oh, everything's great. My life is perfect now. It was hearing people who were still struggling, but they were showing up and going to meetings, and their life was continuing on. They weren't drinking and using. That to me was real. I could relate to that. That's what I needed to hear, because I needed to know that I could get through it. I needed to know that it was okay to have difficult days and moments and mornings, and that I could continue to live a happy, productive life. Well, so you can probably tell I didn't have a plan about what I was going to talk about today, because this is just uh, IRL KG. Um, all right, so I have a feeling I may have triggered some people. I hope in a wholesome way today. So, and I didn't really mean trigger. I mean, I'm just thinking some thoughts may have arisen. So I feel that I can open it up for people's comments, and like to hear what folks have to say. Cheryl, hi.
How are you today, and everyone? It's wonderful to look forward to these Tuesdays. I have a question. So
Okay.
since we're kind of loose today, um, I really I really have never meditated before, so this is a new experience for me. For especially the length of time, I've done shorter times, and I'm sure some people here have done longer times. And it's really interesting. For me, I find that movement helps.
Mhm.
Um, and it may be the musician in me that's coming out. Right now it's almost having an addictive personality. I could become addictive to the quiet breathing and the peacefulness of my mind. but also knowing that's not going to always work. You brought that up, so that's
Yeah,
why I'm
yeah,
kind of dovetailing on that. Um, but it's hard for me because my creative self pops out during these
sure.
meditative sessions, and I'm songwriting. I'm doing all kind of things, and I'm bringing myself back to my breath.
Hmm.
So and then my mantra right now is balance. So equanimity is something that I would like to be I would like it to be more a part of my life experience.
Hmm.
So if you could speak to that, I would be
Mm.
forever grateful. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, the first point about the creativity, that I mean, creativity comes out of the deeper, quieter places within us, and so it's very natural that when we meditate, our creativity is kind of set off. At the same time, part of that energy is avoidance. It's partly an organic process playing out of just like make space in the mind, quiet the mind, and stuff comes up. But part of it is like, oh, this is boring. I need to entertain myself. I'll write a song. And I've done that very thing. And so the I guess there isn't there isn't a right or wrong way to approach this, but essentially my thinking is like, okay, when I realize that's happening, let me not indulge it. Let me just see if I can let it go and feel what it's like to let that go. And there can be this fear of like, oh, that was such a good idea, I, you know. But usually, if something shows up during your meditation, you can get it back, some idea, some inspiration. So,
Well,
but I don't like to get into the sort of like, oh, don't allow that to happen, because it's like, that's just,
let me just say
go
that
ahead.
somehow it's like my little mascot. I think of the ants in the Tolkien trilogy, the trees, that
Mm.
moved slightly, but yet they were very aware, but they were still they were a conglomerate. And I really identify with that. I don't think about it. I do my noting because at
Right,
first noting was a challenge for me because I was so worried that I was doing the noting correctly that
right,
it was non-productive.
right.
So acceptance for me has been if I have some slight movement like an ant,
Yeah,
and I can bring myself back to the present moment.
yeah,
I guess I'm on the path.
yeah. I mean, that's fine. And the main thing is to keep showing up
Mhm.
if you can, as a daily practice, to keep showing up, and things unfold. There's an unfolding that happens that,
Mhm.
again, we're not exactly in control of, but by showing up, we create the potential for that unfolding to happen. And by the unfolding, I mean that you start to understand things, you start to see how things work, you start to make connections intuitively. You don't have to go out and sort of search it out.
Mhm.
But yeah, just keep showing up with things, and equanimity. The second part of your question is really about not running away, not getting caught in the anger or the fantasies, and just seeing that there's all these impulses and that I don't have to follow every single one of them. So it's kind in that way. It's like, not drinking and using. That okay, the feeling or the oh, normally if something like this happened, I would drink. It's like, oh, but I'm not going to. That's a kind of equanimity, if that makes sense.
It does, and thank you because what I'm hearing you say is part of the learning process with this practice is truly experiential. And more will be revealed. That's what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. It is experiential it's not something you can figure out. You have to keep going through it and experience the subtle movements of mind. And yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks, Cheryl. Debbie. Hi.
Hi, Kevin. Hi,
Hey.
everyone. Oh, gosh, this is so incredible for me today personally. I just felt like you were like in my meditation. You're, um, I also experience seasonal affective disorder. And I remember when I was really young, I think I was in high school, and my dad came to me one day. We were just having a heart-to-heart talk, and he brought this up. He said, "Notice this in you. Notice
Wow.
thing," because he had observed that every year around a certain time, and I also am a Pisces baby.
Right.
So throughout my life, I've recognized that the February, I'll go to this place. I'll my just all the energy is just here, and then after coming into the rooms of recovery and going through these 12 steps and going through this processing of exploring more, about who I am or how I'm experiencing life, I got to recognize that, yeah, this is part of what this organism is, right? What this
Right.
organism is. We all are a little bit different organisms, and going through inventory, meeting my shadow side and my light side and accepting it all and stopping, beating myself up for the yucky parts and to, just go through that whole process. Oh my God, what a incredible journey it's been. And yes, it's hard sometimes, but I'll be okay. And so all the stuff that you expressed today, I kind of was going through in my meditation, and that, okay, and awareness on the breath. And then what was the biggest thing that caught my attention? It was the pouring, pounding rain on my windows. And so I started doing sound meditation, which often for me, if I'm in an emotional experience in my meditative practice, if I can kind of bring my awareness something outside of myself, sound is the first place I can go, and it offers a little bit of space to just, okay, I can be with this and just notice. But the whole thing about suiting up and showing up, and I'll be okay. And another one that I land on a lot is, it's like this right now,
Yeah.
and it's okay, and I care. I didn't used to know how to care for myself, right? And so it's just been such an incredible practice over the years, and I'm just so grateful that it's raining so hard. I wasn't going to go out to the barn and stand out in the rain with my horse, right? I'm able to be here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I truly believe that what shows up in our lives, what shows up in our lives, we often need. And thank you. Sorry for my rambling, but I'm so grateful
It's
to be
okay, Deb. You've earned your spot.
Mhm.
And just for those who are listening to that, the suggestion about working with sound is a really great one to experiment with if you're not um, experienced with it and haven't tried it. Sometimes just let go of the breath and just listen to everything you can hear. It's a really great practice. So, technically, we're going to pass over 11 o'clock Pacific here. I'm going to stay on here as long as there are people asking questions. Excuse me. And Robin just sent me a message asking about the workbook. So one of my books, it's sort of weirdly titled. It was supposed to be called Buddhism and the 12 Steps Workbook. But sometimes it shows up on Amazon just as Buddhism and the 12 Steps. So, wow. Okay. I don't know who that is, but somebody's dog is barking. Might be Mickey. Let me
Yeah, it's
mute
me.
her. Vicky, go for it, girl.
Okay.
Pardon the
Uh,
if that's sexist.
and
Mental.
yep, we're that age, aren't we?
Yes.
Anyway, it's lovely to be here. I've been traveling, so it's great to come back to sunny New Mexico, where my seasonally affective disordered husband is like happier,
Really.
and he's got it bad. It's interesting how that. I mean, I'm just observing it as I love this smiley face Dharma thing. I'm like, okay, that's very interesting, because the karma and the conditioning, in my life, what I was born with, is a sunnier. It's what Deb was saying.
Yeah.
We all get something different, right?
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. I've been kissed by the bipolar fairy. It's like, it's the up and down thing. And like so many people in recovery, including a bunch of newcomers who are like bouncing around, holy cow. And so I can really, identify with some of the new people who are coming into my home group, and just bouncy people. So they're up and down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it's lovely to have this range, because really in program, that's what it is this incredible range of mental illness.
Yes, indeed.
and we're dealing with it with this incredibly powerful tool,
Yeah.
like be with. So anyway, I'm so grateful. Thanks.
Thanks, Vicky. Monica.
Thanks, Vicky, for that too. I lived in Belgium for 4 years where it rains 275 days out of the year. And I did fine. I did great. But now I'm older and other things have happened. But um it's harder, but I'm trying. I love that we have this tool of just being with it, like not making it a thing, not letting like going, oh my God, my life's over. I can't feel, more like, oh, I'll just drink tea.
Right.
But I was thinking, I love that. I'm so happy that you said the thing about this too happy dharma, or however you put it, because I had the opportunity to go to two very large yoga festivals, one year after another, and everything was amazing, and everything, people talk with a soft voice, and I was like, either they're on something, but it didn't. And I do love rain, actually. Thank you, Steve. But I have been reading one of Sharon Salzberg book with meditation teacher, and about toxic positivity,
Mm.
like making everything beautiful when it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like not being with. So I was just thinking about that, because it used to make them not feel authentic when everybody is having the best day ever, like all the time, like their lives have been amazing. And so, but I guess this is my reality. Maybe that's the reality. Yes, I can accept that. But thank you for all the different discussions. So I don't
Thank
have a
you.
question, just
No, it's great.
just
Thank you, Monica.
commentary.
Like to hear. I mean, sharing is part of recovery, even though this isn't a 12-step meeting. It's fine to share. Jamie, hi.
Hi, Kevin.
Welcome. Hey, welcome.
See you. Hi, Johnny. Good to see you too. Shout out. Yeah, I love that, the smiling Dharma, always happy. I'm glad you brought that up. Um, because I've been struggling lately in my practice. I've been having a really hard time with compassion for others that I don't feel like are have compassion for me or the people I care about uh, in this political climate as a member of the LGBTQIA community. There's a lot of, things going on. And so I had emailed a Zen teacher that I'm not a formal student of, and his advice was good that, compassion isn't necessarily transactional, and to just kind of sit with the anger and see what's going on. And I've been trying to do some meta practice along with that. And I realize it's a lot of there's a lot of fear behind it, and frustration. But I was just wondering, like from a non-Zen sort of point of view of sitting with anger, or how to practice with anger, or and develop compassion. Like I said, I've been trying to do some meta, but it's becoming like I've noticed it in myself, and it disturbs myself because I'm not typically like that. Um, that angry or that uncompassionate. But like when I hear stories of people, I kind of brush off like, well, told you so, or like, that kind of attitude, and I don't like that in myself at all. But it's becoming a problem. So I was just kind of throwing it out there as, any words of advice or point of view that might be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Jamie. I mean, I I think you are referring to the greater cultural political moment, and you know, I think, as they say, if you're not angry, you're not paying attention. So I don't think there's something wrong with you know with anger as a viewpoint almost. It's almost like, yeah, the feeling and being swept away with it is painful, and it's not very helpful. But being angry intellectually about what's going on is, to me, wise and hopefully motivating. So that's one thing, is like, what am I going to do with this? Is to try to use it as motivation. Um, the traditional Buddhist view is that holding anger within ourselves only creates suffering for us, and that's counterproductive to any effort at happiness. And that even the Buddha says, when you get angry at someone else, you're giving them what they want, which is actually true, right? In this, again, this cultural political moment, that there are forces that want us to be frustrated and angry. That's what trolling is about, right? So to recognize, like, okay, let me not buy into what someone else is trying to manipulate me, you know. Uh, but that doesn't mean I can't respond to what's going on in some more constructive manner. I don't have to be passive about this. I don't just have to sit here and take it. I can stand up and I can make my voice be heard, but I don't have to, you know, they want me to be afraid. They want me to be angry. And I don't want to, if I'm getting caught in that, that's a moment when I need to pull back from, scrolling or reading every article. But I mean, if it's something that I'm facing personally, directly, and are in that, as, I'll say, I mean, you said that essentially as a gay man, you're a target, and that's very different from like, oh, this is terrible what they're doing to those people, so you have a challenge that I can't tell you how to deal with that. It's something you've been dealing with. I mean, so someone who lives in, southern Georgia is it, it's been part of your life for a long time. So it's like, I mean, I just I feel like I've sort of talked myself into a corner here. I don't.
No, that was very helpful. Like you mentioned a few things that were like, okay, yes, maybe I do need to step back somewhat. If it's that I'm getting caught in it and it's just compounding and yeah. No, that was very helpful. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thanks, Jamie. I mean, I want to say finally, because this is something that's on my mind a great deal. It's like, you know, there's a, I don't, I, as much as I don't want to get caught in like every day's latest, you know, thing that's trying to stir me up. I also don't want to become someone who's just like, oh, that's happening over there. It's not me. I don't have to worry about it. That's the old, when they came for the other people, then I didn't do anything. And so what do I do when they come for the Buddhists, and I'm struggling with that, frankly, honestly, really how to engage. We got a few people. I mean, a bunch of people are still hanging out. There's a couple people still have their hands up. Forrest.
Hey, Kevin.
Uh,
Yeah, thank you. Um, there's a few things that you brought up in the Dharma that really struck home for me. One, I just want to acknowledge, I too am always attracted during 12-step meetings with, not the person that has all the answers and figured it out and is cured, but the ones that, yeah, are still suffering, working through it. And that helps me out my own journey of just this, you know, unconditional self-love and learning how to be an imperfect human. Um, and I really appreciate that. And I think that's what I do like, appreciate your talks because you present yourself as, someone that's not an enlightened guru, but just one of us struggling along through this path. So I just want to express my gratitude for that. The couple of things that got me out. I'm reworking the steps right now, this time through the adult children and alcoholics version of it. And I
mm,
recently went through step one. And the one that really came up for me was the difference between not confusing. It's kind of the helplessness is the near enemy of powerlessness.
yeah.
To you, something I learned from you.
Yeah.
And I like that term, why I may be powerless. Maybe it's paradoxical, but you still have agency.
Yeah.
And then to kind of tie it out, having worked step 11 through Alcoholics Anonymous, where you come back, and having developed a relationship with God or the great mystery or your higher power, the Dharma, that you have this point of empowerment. Um, um, and it's an interesting process aligning the ACA steps with the ACA steps.
Mm,
Like for example, AA, I learned about my character defects. In ACA, I'm learning that why I may have character defects, I need not confuse that with being a defective character.
nice.
Defections. And I guess the one I was thinking about, I also suffer, I'm vulnerable to seasoning anxiety disorder and my Vipassana practice and just sitting that and fully embracing whatever comes up and holding space, no matter how uncomfortable it is at moments and not running from it and sitting where do I feel it in my body and it's still I'm just a beginner in all this, but it's been helping my seasonal anxiety disorder. But I guess to bring it back to the kind of Dharma, I still in those times of low, just complete despair, and I still have them. I find that still the most helpful thing is the prayer of Saint Francis.
Right.
And I mean, do you see an equivalent of that in the Dharma?
I coughed right when you said that. So say that again.
And yeah, in my moments of deepest despair, and I still have them, I turn to the prayer of St. Francis,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
which is, anybody that's spent time in AA and worked the steps, I found it an incredible helpful tool for me that I still fall back on. And I'm just
Yeah.
in the Dharma practice, is there an equivalent to that, to fall back in those
I
moments?
mean, I think the St. Francis prayer is straight Dharma. Because I mean, the conclusion of it is about not self, is that, by di by dying, we are, somebody has to help me, but, we're awakened to the eternal life. Is that what it is? Something like that. You should unmute yourself, Forrest, because you got to help me a little bit with the St. Francis prayer.
You want me? I could pull it up real quick.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, it's really about, you know, being in the world with compassion, fearlessness, you know, looking for the light, for the positive, uh, and being of service, not being self-centered, uh, all of that, compassion. It seems like it's, as I say, really straight Dharma. I mean, but I don't think we need something separate. I mean, I think the St. Francis prayer is a great. Why not use that? You don't need to make up another strictly Buddhist version of it, because it sort of speaks right to us. And what's useful about something like that is that it's something you have in your mind. Like, obviously, I don't have it in my mind, but if it's something that you practice and recite, it becomes this reliable place to turn your attention to, that kind of, that holds you. And in those moments of desperation, when we can't think of anything good, to have something that we've memorized, that's what a prayer can be. It's this refuge for us, like, oh, right, right. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, right? Like, I can remember that even when it seems like everything is going to hell. And that it can pull you out of those states, because it's a reminder of the truth and of what you believe and of what protects you. So I wouldn't, if, I think it's great to just, call on the St. Francis prayer. And it doesn't talk about Jesus or God, does it? I'm trying to remember
Well,
exactly.
it's addressed to the Lord, so the idea is
Lord, yeah, okay, right.
an outside entity. But I have it here if you want me to recite.
Yeah, why don't you read it for us? I think that'd be a nice way to.
Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace, that where there is hatred, I may bring love, that where there is wrong, I may bring the spirit of forgiveness, that where there is discord, I may bring harmony, that where there is error, I may bring truth, that where there is doubt, I may bring faith, that where there is despair, I may bring hope, that where there is shadows, I may bring light, that where there is sadness, I may bring joy. Lord, grant that I may seek rather to comfort than to be comforted, to understand than to be understood, to love than to be loved. For it is by thy self-forgetting that one finds. It is by forgiving that one is forgiven. It is by dying that one awakens to eternal life.
Yeah. Yeah, dying, and that's the death of the ego. It's being talked about, so very much a Dharma teaching. Thank you. Paolo, you've had your hand up for a while, so we'll give you the last word here. If you're still there, okay.
I'm here at work, so it's late, and I was hoping the timing would pan out, and it did. I'm not sure how long this connection is going to hold up, so I'm just going to be really quick. I would love to hear your cranky essay on current affairs, and I feel like a lot of Buddhist literature and journalism is always so pitch perfect and portrays the finished product and everything is sterling and shiny
Mhm.
and I think it could be a great benefit to a lot of people to hear, some of the confusion and fear and some of the misgivings that people feel. I feel like a lot of us, especially outside of recovery, are trying so hard to be perfect all of the time,
Yeah.
and trying to get straight to the finished product, right? Trying to get straight to a state of equanimity without having gone through the hoops.
Yeah.
Um, in Vajrayana, there's and I forget if it was 9 or 12, and I forget her name, but there's the 12-faced boar, and she is kind of a semi-animal figure, and her central face at the base of it is serene and has perfect equanimity. But each of the other faces, to her left and right and above the central face, are contorted in various like extreme emotions.
Uh-huh. That's
And
great.
I feel like, so often we try to go straight to that finished product without allowing
Yeah.
ourselves to be human first. And I
Yeah.
would love to hear. And one of the things that was most important for me in One Breath at a Time was the way you discussed your depression and
Mhm.
how you wish someone had told you that you can be depressed and still functioning.
Yeah.
I lost 20 years. I have year round depressive affective
Yeah.
disorder.
Yeah.
So in the winter, it just gets that much worse.
Mm.
And depression has been a much more destructive force in my life than even drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
And that was one of the most important parts of One Breath at a Time to have something that I was just coming to myself, emphasized and made overt, and to hear it coming from someone who I respected, that yes, you can be depressed and functioning, because that hadn't occurred to me, because I freeze up and I shut down, and that's related to trauma as well. And it was a big deal to realize that I can be this profoundly depressed and still moving forward.
Thank you. Thanks, Paolo. Uh, I appreciate that I can continue to be my cranky self. Uh, So thanks everybody for hanging out. Hope you
Thanks
have
for
a
the extra time, buddy.
yeah, sure.
Be cranky, stay inside, get out of the rain.
No, I'm gonna put on my rain gear and go for a nice walk in the rain.
Go hit some golf balls in the rain.
Exactly. The golf courses are empty right now. You can get out there and have the place to yourself. It's perfect.
They won't charge you.
Yeah, unfortunately they will. They'll charge you full price,
Good.
Lightning
Have a good day, you guys.
club up too high. I don't know.
All right.
Thank
Take
you,
care,
Kevin.
everybody. All right. Thanks, Rita.
you. Bye, everyone.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye. Bye, Eleanor.